Through the dreadful darkness, we shall be the light and lead a path to wisdom. Our will to be our lives. To those in pain and suffering, we shall hear a call. With arms to care and comfort, compassion above all, to face the brighter future. Well, in unity, the Philippine College of Physicians, we shall be hand in hand, building a stronger nation. Peace in
The Philippine College of Physicians, through the Committee on Media Communication and Health Forum, presents its bi-monthly lay forum to promote the advocacies and mission of the college and its component and affiliate societies. An avenue of accurate and up-to-date conversations with the media and the general public, with timely and diverse topics covering vital public health and medical information, straight from the experts. In a platform that is convenient, accessible, and highly engaging. Welcome to the PCP Health Forum.
Good morning to everyone, and good morning also to our guests for today's Philippine College of Physicians Health Forum. This morning we'll be treated with extensive discussion on the importance of booster doses, and we know that how important it is in terms of building that wall of immunity and to move on with this pandemic. Before I'll proceed with introducing our president, I would just like to share with you a few slides just to set the tone of this particular discussion. And it's about where are we now in the pandemic. So this is the update from the World Odometer, April 7, and you see here countries. Okay, so you focus a look into this yellow column. And you see there are still countries that are really reporting higher number of cases up to this point. We are number 11 among these Asian countries in terms of the total number of cases. But it's good to look that we only have 265 cases as of this is yesterday. And you see countries like Thailand, Japan, South Korea really reporting high number of cases, including that of some neighboring countries like Singapore and Hong Kong. And these are also countries in which the fully vaccinated population are really very high. For example, in Korea, they're already 86%. Vietnam is 78%. Japan is 79%. Thailand has a higher number of fully vaccinated, and the Philippines like 60 million. Okay? Now, you look at the booster, even in these countries with a very high number of new cases, high number of boosted population, still they are reporting these cases. And the one that is really responsible for this is the emergence of this heavily mutated Omicron variant. The first few months we had Omicron BA1, but now most of these countries we now have the BA2. And you can see the peak of the cases here in terms of how this particular variant has overtaken all of the other variants of concern. And currently, BA2 now is the most dominant among the different countries. And in this particular slide, you'll notice, okay, so these are the different spike mutations of the spike protein. And here you'll see that the blue one, this is immune escape, meaning the ability of these variants to escape vaccine, and at the same time, higher infectivity or higher transmissibility. And this is really more seen with the BA1 and the BA2 over that of the other variants of concern. So some of these countries reporting this BA2, so it has taken over also in most Asia Pacific region countries, and this is also responsible of the surge that are currently being experienced in South Korea, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and in Taiwan. We know for a fact that BA2 or BA1 causes less severe, less hospitalization based on current data, but we have to look at it in a way that we have to be careful, because during the first surge of cases in this is South African data, you will notice that there are two populations that higher odds ratio of being hospitalized. Okay, and these are those less than 5 years old, where we don't have yet any vaccine recommendation for this population, and those 60 years old and above. The other aspect that we need to know is the ability of BA2 to reinfect. And we know for a fact that in most reinfection, knowledge was you can only be reinfected after 3 months. But in most and newer data now, it says that even less than 30 days, you can be reinfected, even if you have the BA1, can be reinfected with the BA2, median days of 36 days. This is also another data differentiating BA2 from the other variants in terms of admissions, especially for children, and also it's more potentially more harmful than influenza. If you think that this is just an ordinary influenza, may not be, especially for this particular population. So important message, Omicron has taken over the world. BA2 is rapidly replacing BA1. Risk for severe disease, especially elderly, 60 years old and above, and children still there. And there are new variants coming and already documented, like your XD and XF, which is a recombinant of your Delta and Omicron, and is also a recombinant of a BA1 and BA2, which has a reproductive advantage of 10% over that of your BA1. Okay. So at this point, I would like to call on our President, Dr. Maricar Lipin, to welcome this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jean Solante. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Sa araw na ito ay pag-uusapan natin ang isang napakahalaga at mabisang pamamaraan ng pagprotekta sa ating kalusugan at buhay, lalong-lalo na sa pandemyang ito ng COVID-19. Bagamat ang mga kaso po ngayon ng COVID-19 ay mababa na, hindi ho nangangahulugan na pwede na tayong maging kampante, na parang walang virus sa paligid natin. Dahil tiyak, andito pa rin ho ang virus na yan sa atin lahat. So kailangan na siguraduhin ho natin na tayo at pati ng ating mga mahal sa buhay ay protektado. Bukod of course sa pananatili ng pagsuot ng face mask ng tama, yung takip po yung ilong at saka yung bibig. Mabuti po na tayo ay magpabakuna. So sa talakayan na ito, malalaman ho natin ang lahat ng impormasyon tungkol sa pagbakuna. Mga impormasyon na base sa mga scientific evidences. Pinangunahan na nga ho tayo ni Dr. Jean Solante doon sa mga evidences na yan. So kami po sa PCP ay patuloy na maninindigan sa siyensya at asahan po ninyo na hindi ho kami susuko sa pagbigay sa inyo ng tama at maaasahang impormasyon tungkol sa kalusugan. Tayo po ay makinig ng mabuti at dalangin po namin na kayo ay maliwanagan para kayo ay lumabas at magpabakuna sa lalong madaling panahon. So, salamat po.
Thank you, Maricar. So, our next speaker, of course, will be talking about the importance of the booster. Okay. And she'll be presenting important data why booster is needed even at this point in time. And of course, no other than our chairman of the vaccine expert panel, who's also into microbial immunology and medical biotechnology. Please welcome Dr. Nina Gloriani.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Jean. Good morning po, Dr. Limpin, si Secretary Joey, si Professor Guido, at ang lahat ng iba pa po. No? So, I will now share my screen. Teka, ilagay lang natin sa slideshow. Yan. So, ay sorry, napabilis. Reviews muna. Sorry ah. Ito muna, no? Ito yung title na binigay sa akin, to provide you with scientific data on the benefits of COVID-19 vaccine boosters. So makita nyo dito pa lang sa picture ko, merong 1, 2 and booster, and then 1, 2, 3 and booster kasi magkaibang populasyon yan. The general population at yung immunocompromised na we have defined. Okay. So, I will give you, bibigay ko yung rationale. Bakit ba natin kailangan ng booster doses? Malinaw na mga data po, no? Waning immunity, bumababa ang protection after several months. Usually, do sa ibang mga tao, 3, 4, 5, but generally 5 to 6 months after the complete dose, yung second dose. Then, dumating ang mga variants. So, paulit-ulit po natin, mini-mention ito. And kasi importante na maintindihan natin na bukod sa bumaba ang proteksyon, bumaba ang antibodies, ang mga T-cells, actually T-cells hindi. Pero yung dumating itong mga variants and, narinig nyo kay Dr. Jean kanina, yung sub-variants of concern, may mga anak pa o siblings yung ating variant. Then, I'll give you just a few selected studies on booster dose data. Ito ay before and after third dose. Although, i-mention ko rin ng konti, yung need maybe for a second dose, second booster. So, fourth dose na po yun. I-mention ko lang. And then, ano ba yung talagang current approaches anywhere around the world to COVID-19 vaccination and some key messages. So, ito po, rationale. Waning immunity, ano bang ibig sabihin ng waning? Ito, no? Most of our vaccines are based on 2 doses. So, after 1 dose, ito lang yung level ng antibody na nakikita natin. Ganito kadami. Pero, bababa yan. Kaya nga, lahat halos ng COVID vaccines ay 2 doses ang ibinibigay. At tumaas naman talaga, ayan, maganda ang taas. Stronger response. Pero, nakita natin, nagkaroon ng mga breakthrough infections after 5-6 months or even earlier for maybe the elderly, the immunocompromised. Kaya, ito, antibodies decrease below the threshold over time. Ito yung parang protective immune threshold. Dapat ganyang karami. Pero pag bumaba na, kailangan i-boost natin siya ulit. And that is not true for COVID lang. True po yan sa lahat ng mga bakuna. Na after a certain time, bababa talaga yung immune response, yung immunity, and then kailangan natin i-restore yung protection na yon. So, 2 doses dito, that's your primary. And then, nakita nga natin na after the second dose, yun, meron na. Marami nang may mga breakthrough infections. So, ito, you have to give another dose. So, third dose ang tawag natin dyan. Siguro dahil mayroong possibility ng second dose, baka pwedeng tawagin na rin na first dose siya, although wala pa tayo ng second dose. So, titignan natin, 1, 2, and then booster. Importante po yan. So, if we look at these considerations for boosters, ang importante ay ang waning immunity, dahil talagang bumababa, at ang variants na nag-emerge. Ngayon, sino ang dapat bigyan na mas lalo ang priority for these boosters? Risk groups, elderly, immunocompromised, yung mga may high exposure na risk, posibleng nag-o-open up na po tayo, no? So, yung mga nyari nasa airport, yung mga, even teachers, mga healthcare workers, importante po na madagdagan ng protection nila. And also, we will have to consider reducing transmission. Hindi lang yung waning immunity, yung emerging variants, pero habang may umiikot na mga variants, ay magre-replicate, magmo-multiply, dadami sila at makakapanghawa ulit at magmo-mutate pa. So we want to reduce transmission, especially in highly exposed groups, And then we have to look at later, papakita ko yung scientific data, selected studies, on how booster doses perform. Ano ba talaga ang ginagawa nila? Paano natin masasabi na talagang importante at may naitutulong ang booster doses after yung primary doses. Titignan natin yung safety, immunogenicity, or protection or effectiveness, no? And then ito pwede nila itanong later. So, ang clear dito sa mga data that we have seen so far, and we're monitoring all the vaccines that we have deployed. The standard, the standard, yung dalawa, 2 doses of a COVID vaccine did not provide or do not provide sufficient protection against infection, as waning immunity was noted after 3, 4, 5, 6, and mas longer pa doon sa last time na nakuha nyo yung dose, mas bababa talaga yan, no? After the second dose. So, all the vaccines we have monitored so far showed yung importance ng third dose or booster dose to restore, ibalik yung protection against COVID-19 at kasama doon sa data nila yung protection na better against severe form of COVID and against the variants of concern. So, nabanggit ni Dr. Ginto kanina, no? Pero yan nga, no? Hindi pa po tayo tapos sa pandemya. Masaya tayo na bumaba na ang kaso natin. Pero may na mga nag-emerge nga na mga variants. And data showed all of the vaccines we have deployed reported waning immunity, yun na nga, and yung iba, very low neutralizing antibodies. Yung ibang vaccines, wala na ring nakita kahit konting antibody, especially against Omicron after 2 doses. Ang Omicron ang pinakamatindi sa pag-evade sa ating immune response. So, third or booster doses, as I said, restore protection, especially against severe form and the variants of concern. So, yun nga ito na nabanggit na to. So, may threat na mga ito. So, hindi po natin babaliwalain ito. Although, of course, hindi naman din tayo dapat ganun yung katakot. Hindi. For as long as we remain protected, nagpapabakuna tayo, sinusunod natin ang ating minimum public health standards, we will be okay, ano? So, eto na po yung mga selected studies. Yung pinaka-simple na lang ang pinili ko para madaling makita. And this is ito, kay Costa Clemens, anti-spike antibodies. Yung mga tusok-tusok ng virus, yung mga antibodies against that. Before the third dose, so bumaba na after the second dose, no? Kung titignan ninyo, 10,000 yung count, kung bibilangin natin kunwari yung antibodies, ito yung arbitrary units per ml. So, nasa 10,000. Pare-pareho sila, AstraZeneca, CoronaVac, Janssen, Pfizer. Noong nagbigay ng third dose, 28 days after nabigay yung third dose, pumanik silang lahat. More, yung iba mas mataas kaysa sa CoronaVac, pero makikita nyo mataas pa rin. So, yung from 10,000, million na to yung binibilang nating arbitrary units nung antibodies na yon. So, malinaw po yan. Pumanik. Ito ay kay Doria Rose naman na study, US NIH study. Serum titer din ng mga antibodies ang tinitignan dito at tinignan nila talaga yung epekto, yung neutralization against the variants, no? So ito is 4 weeks post dose 2, dose 2 to, no? So mataas dito ito yung pinakamalapit na variant doon sa Wuhan, yung unang-unang prototype strain natin. And then sa beta, tinest din nila yung beta variant, ito yung titer na nakuha nila. And then sa Omicron, pinakamababa. This is 4 weeks post-dose 2. Pero makita nyo, nung nagbigay ng third dose, ito yung dose 3, tumaas silang lahat. At in fact, dito sa D614G, halos lahat ng mga nabigyan ay talagang ang taas ng kanilang antibody, then followed by beta, and then, thankfully itong Omicron kasi ang talagang binabantayan natin, ayan, tumaas din siya after the third dose. So, ito naman ay sa Israel, si Nemet et al. So, ganun din, second dose and third dose. So, ito wild type, beta, may delta sila ngayon dito, at Omicron. So, makikita nyo, ito is after the second dose. talagang mataas kasi ang ating bakuna ay against the prototype, yung wild type, no? So mataas ang antibody diyan, pero bumaba na dito sa beta, bumaba na rin sa delta ng konti, pero may mga bababa yung level na yan, no? Iba ang level, hindi sila magkapantay. 128 lang to, no? Then ang Omicron. So mababa po lahat ito after a second dose. Noong nagbigay ng third dose, so makita nyo na ang number dito ay mas mataas na, no? So wild type pa rin ang pinakamarami, followed by beta, and then delta, and then omicron. So tumaas na po. So malinaw po ang mga data. At konti lang po ito, marami pa po ibang tayong mga studies, kaya lang kulang tayo sa oras. And ito naman ay sa Pfizer and Moderna. Very clear po dito na ito, no, dose 2 yung nandito sa left, mababa. Pag binigyan ng third dose, papanik yan. And usually may tinetest kasi 7 days after dose 3 or 1 month after dose 3. And then ito sa beta variant tinest at itong isa ay sa delta variant. So pareho, after the third dose, pumanik po yung mga neutralizing antibodies against the beta variant and against the delta variant. Yan po yung sa Pfizer na third dose or 30 micrograms. Ito pong Moderna ay nagbigay lang ng 50 micrograms, no? Yung kalahating dose. Pero ganun din po ang resulta na after dose 2, bumaba. Pagbigay ng third dose, pumanik. So makikita nyo, 196, naging 4,000, yung bilang ng neutralizing antibody titer. So very similar. The profile is very similar for both Pfizer and Moderna. So, malapit na ako matapos. So, I think you all know na maharami na tayong naibigay na bakuna doses as of March 30 po ito, no? Nasa total of 140,236,000 doses, pero makikita nyo ito, ang nakakompleto na ng 2 doses or at least yung kung may single dose na nakakuha ay 65.8 million. Pero iilan pa lang ang nakaka-receive ng booster dose. Nasa 12 million. And if you look at yung sa ASEAN region, nandito po tayo sa baba. This is vaccine booster doses administered per 100 people. Dapat po iangat natin yan para makadagdag tayo talaga sa protection. And then we just have some breakdown of the priority groups dito, healthcare workers, A2, but specifically, I'd like to highlight yung importance na mabigyan ng elderly, ang mga may comorbidities, at ang mga immunocompromised. But of course, we also have to cater do sa ating economic sector kasi sila yung nasa labas, sila ang mas exposed dito sa virus na ito. So, I'll end with the last 2 slides. Ito yung approaches that we are doing now. And this is all over the world, hindi lang to sa Pilipinas. Mayroon tayong approaches to COVID-19 vaccination. While we are waiting for possibly next generation COVID-19 vaccines, yung mga baka mas bago, better, safer, higher immunogenicity and better protection, ito muna ang ating ginagawa. Itong optimizing the use of current vaccines. Ito po yung meron tayo ngayon. Ito yung ating prototype vaccines, yung unang-unang vaccines, first generation vaccines. So, how do we optimize yung use nito? Nagbibigay nga tayo po ng booster at nakakatulong ng malaki na ang binibigay nating booster ay yung mix and match or yung heterologous boost. So, pwede naman pong tanongin na lang later, ano yan, no? Pero while waiting for possibly, kasi ngayon may ginagawa ding mga bakuna na ang ginagamit nila yung variant like beta and omicron, meron pa yan, I think delta yung isa, no? Pero right now ang data show na ang performance nitong variant specific vaccines ay pareho lang, walang pagkakaiba doon sa current vaccines that we have. So ito talaga ang ating gagamitin pa ngayon. And then, but we look forward to what we call next generation broadly protective vaccines. yung tinatawag kong vaccines of the future, na sana hindi nang kakailanganin yung every so often, every 4 months, every 6 months, pero mas matagal sana. At mako-cover lahat ng variants of concern na umiikot at possibly yung even mag-e-emerge. So, meron silang ginagawang mga pag-aaral ngayon dyan. So, this is my last slide. So, ano ba yung key message? We're talking always about vaccine as a protection, as an added layer of protection for that immunity wall, no? So, pero priority pa rin natin mahanap yung mga hindi pa nababakunahan kahit isa at yung mga partially vaccinated pa lang, meaning wala pa silang second dose, yung sa 2-dose series. So we strongly encourage booster doses. Marami po tayong bakuna ngayon to the eligible population kasi binibilang po yun sana as early as 3 months after the second dose. So earlier than that, hindi po. Pero marami na tayong mga nabakunahan longer than 3 months ago. No? So marami na pwede talaga mabigyan ng booster doses. Pero I just have to mention kasi pinag-uusapan na rin na baka makapagbigay din tayo ng second booster or what we call 4th dose or maybe even 5th dose for the severely immunocompromised. So pinag-aaralan po ngayon yan, nasa FDA na po, and especially we're again looking at waning immunity following the boosting, ano yung trends ng COVID-19 at ano pa ang mga newer variants circulating at ano ang epekto nitong mga variants and sub-variants na ito sa immunity na generate natin against the vaccines that we had. So yan, lahat po tayo ay dapat maprotektahan, ang ating mga healthcare workers, lahat ng vulnerable at higher risk, ang ating mga elderly, even children. So para andito na po tayo, alert level 1 o alert level 0 ba? So let us provide our people the additional layer of protection against COVID-19. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ma'am Lina. So, just like to remind, you can type your questions in the Q&A box. Now, let's proceed with our next speaker. One of the severely affected sector is the business sector, and with the specter that a possible surge is coming, and hopefully it won't happen. There are certain uncertainties that our economy again will be stalled, and the best person really to discuss the importance of booster in terms of boosting the economic activity and building more confidence to the business sector is a person who during the start of the pandemic has also been very instrumental in helping the business sector. And at this point, I would like to introduce the Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Mr. Joey Concepcion. Sir?
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Salante, and thank you to the other medical doctors in this Zoom meeting. First of all, let me share with you my thoughts. We've been basically 25 months into this pandemic, and to a large extent, over the last 12 months, we made critical decisions on how we should maneuver and win the war against COVID-19. And by far, if we were to look at where we are today, considering that our neighboring countries have been severely affected by the surges, the Philippines has been spared from this surge. And it is basically because, from my point of view, the teamwork that both government, the private sector, and of course our medical advisors have been able to harness that synergy of really finding the right solution towards saving not only the lives of our people but the economy as well. And from the first initiative of the private sector to the dose of hope in buying the first vaccines when the government could not buy vaccines in November 27, 2020, that was a milestone to the tripartite agreement forged by Secretary Galvez. And by and large, I would say Secretary Galvez has been a great partner here in really harnessing the private sector's support in all these initiatives in trying to bring about where we are today. Now, the economy has been severely hit. There is no doubt about that. The hard lockdowns, the first months of this pandemic has taken a toll on our micro, small, and medium enterprises. And as an entrepreneur myself, of course, large businesses, we are also affected, especially the tourism sector, which had for 24 months no business activity. Hotels were closed. Airlines were not flying enough people, so they were losing so much money. And all of these challenges. So even big business, despite our ability to survive better than small businesses, many were greatly affected. So again, vaccination did work. I mean, the campaign to really give the primary doses to our people started with NCR, and we saw that strategy work because even with these vaccines that we ordered, as AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Pfizer, the problem is that they arrived quite late. And that is one reason why we have a surplus of vaccines at this point in time, because these vaccines were promised much earlier. They arrived 3-4 months after. And by then, we already had to purchase other vaccines. So that's why part of this problem of excess vaccines came from this. But nevertheless, the vaccines were deployed to the private sector. We have fully vaccinated the primary doses. Everybody has taken the primary doses. The success rate of the private sector is very high because we have managers and supervisors who can really go down to the people and really push very hard. And we had, at that time, IATF approving that for those who have not taken their vaccines will be required to take an RT-PCR test every 2 weeks at their cost. So that was something that we could use to really push our employees to take the primary doses, and which they did. In fact, most of the companies that bought the vaccines, whether AstraZeneca or Moderna, have fully inoculated their people with even the third dose. Our range of success is anywhere between 70 to 100% fully vaccinated. So over the past months, as you know, we saw, I mean, if you look at back last year, last quarter, we also saved that quarter because upon the advice of Octo Research, they felt that there was a risk of a surge in cases. So they requested the private sector, myself, to do a lockdown. And that was sometime August, September last year when the private sector pushed for the lockdown with the IATF, which they approved, and we locked down. And that actually saved our fourth quarter. And you saw the GDP result of that fourth quarter at 7.7. That was a great fourth quarter that we had last year. But then right after that, we had a surge with Omicron, which actually affected a lot of Filipino people. We reached up to alert level 3. And after a while, it started to move back down. So definitely the vaccination program of the government and the private sector has clearly paved the way for us to be at this sweet spot today, whereby despite the rallies all over the country with tons of Filipino people campaigning and all of that, the level of infection still remains to be relatively tame. And unlike our neighboring countries are fighting that battle. So as a result, the economy has been open despite us being at alert level 1. Of course, I believe that we can move down to alert level 0, but definitely moving down to alert level 0 will require certain things that we have to do to be able to maintain that. So at this point in time, rather than push for alert level 0, I call the attention of everyone with that press release that 27 million vaccines are expiring. Not to say that it's the government's fault. It is not the government's fault. It is not the private sector's fault. It is the hesitancy, the complacency of our Filipino people not wanting to take the booster shots. Many of them are deferring it because they see that the current situation in the country is back to normal. There is no infection. Despite rallies, people are not getting infected. So there's no real urgency on their part to take it, but not realizing that these vaccines were purchased both by us and the government to inoculate our people because we know that these primary doses will definitely wane. And they start waning, to my guess, it will be towards the second semester of this year. So in our company, for example, we have inoculated close to 100% of our people already with the booster shot. The fourth dose is not yet due, but we have enough stock for that, and we will do that when the time comes. But what is bothersome is that the uptake in the national level for booster shots are just only 13%. And in NCR, while we have attained 104% with the primary doses, we're only at 30.49% with boosters. So it is clearly a warning sign, no, that things can get worse. And if you look down to from region 5 to all the way to 12, they're hardly in the 5-6%. But nevertheless, even with the primary doses, they're still way below, the targeted 80-85%. So the vaccination program, maybe because of this election fever where people are campaigning, has taken a backseat. It now presents a big risk. Not only that the vaccines will expire by June, July, but our people will start to lose that immunity slowly over the next couple of months. And as these variants start to emerge and we are getting to see more of them, the chances of this variant entering the country is always there. And if what clearly protected us from getting to what the other ASEAN countries experience with this surge, we are quite protected with our primary doses. And of course, natural immunity, because a lot of Filipinos in that Omicron surge early this year, that hit a lot of Filipinos. And many of them got hit, and maybe they don't even know that they got hit. And so that they have that, what they call temporary immunity, which according to the medical advices, wane faster than the immunity that one would get from vaccination. So the goal is to really continue to open the economy, because private sector, a lot of MSMEs have definitely rebounded. They have been able to restructure their loans, which is very important at this time. And banks have more confidence. Now, the Ukraine-Russia crisis is bringing a great deal of pressure on our people. They are going to start feeling it, especially with fuel prices, diesel, so transport prices will start to increase. We in the private sector who are producing food, bread, in our case, we are into flour milling, so we supply a lot of flour to a lot of bake shops and bakeries. But that, because of Ukraine and Russia being one of the largest exporters of wheat in the world, the prices of wheat have gone through the roof, and even milk and all other commodities. So we're going to see all of these price increases in the coming months, which will definitely, with this, as people recover in their businesses, as families are now getting back their lives with their parents being employed again and getting hit now with this inflation, will be a challenge. So then if we get hit with a surge in the next 6 months, especially June onward to December, which by and large is the strongest 6 months of the year, because that's when people start to go back to school. School will generate a lot of economic activity. Bringing back our employees to the workplace has started. So that's going to generate more economic activity. So all of this, school supplies and all of canteens reopening, carinderias, all of those entrepreneurs will benefit. And of course, you will have more mobility, especially. And of course, with that, you've got greater economic activity. But if we don't take the third vaccine, which is the booster, then that wall of immunity will definitely weaken or even collapse. And as these variants do come in, and now we will have to go back to the days where we raised that alert level back to alert level 3 or alert level 4. And you have the Russian-Ukraine crisis still ongoing. So you have the possibility of stagflation, which means basically rising prices and falling demand, because consumers cannot afford to buy the products of the people, the companies producing food. People will not be able to afford that. So then people will clamor for wage increases. So the inflation will just keep going up, and the risk of stagflation or a recession is going to be becoming more real, and that is what we have to protect. So while we are in this great sweet spot at this point in time, I'm really urging all our medical doctors to really call out, and we will launch a campaign calling out our people to take the booster shots, because this is what will keep our state, the current state that we are in, which is one of great envy of many other nations, that the Philippines, despite being criticized of being a laggard in all of these health issues, we have proven today that we have been successful, far more successful than countries who have been very stringent in their health protocols. So again, the reason for all of this is that we definitely don't want to change the mindset of the next administration, because if they see that 27 million vaccines were not taken by its citizens, why will they have to buy and spend money in buying vaccines for our people when they will not take it? So we have to reverse that. And hopefully with my conversation with Secretary Duque, the IETF will initiate more pressure. And Filipinos sometimes need that kind of pressure, that stick. In other words, we can't drag them to the vaccination centers and just jab them without their consent. We will have to give them either benefits or reduce their mobility if they don't have these booster cards. If they decide to shift from the vaccine cards to the booster cards, or like in America, the vaccine cards, the boosters were just incorporated in the current vaccine cards. That can also be done. So whatever the DOH would agree, we have to do it now. We have to push harder now. And we have to try to either incentivize or restrict movement of our people who are not going to take their booster. Not tomorrow. My request to Secretary Duque that we cannot do this immediately, or else nobody will be able to enter these retail stores, these business establishments, or even get a ride. We have to give them either 30 days or 60 days to take their boosters. And if not done by that point, then the booster cards will now be required upon entry, either in a public ride or in a restaurant or whatever, similar to what we were doing when we were doing the vaccination card requirement much earlier on. So this is my view. I'm as entrepreneurs, we look 6, 8 months, 12 months down the road as to what are the risks. And this to me is our greatest risk. Not only that we will waste billions and billions of pesos here. Of course, some of that were donated by COVAX, and some of that were purchased by the private sector, but still a huge part is taxpayers' money. And the people who are paying taxes are just going to waste the money. So, and that's why I've raised this concern and I've seen us through. And to me, I hope as we pass on to the next administration what we have done, that we will be able to attain a higher level of boosting among our people. And that's my goal. And I hope all of you here would support this clamor coming out in the newspapers, coming out in TV, in radio, and explaining to the public the importance of this third and even the fourth booster, which to my mind, in my case, I'll be taking it soon, is important to keep that wall of immunity strong. The wall of immunity will allow us to open the economy and create greater opportunities for our people, create more jobs, and give everybody that hope and confidence that 2022 will be a great year. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Sir Joey. Now let's proceed with the last speaker. Okay, we saw in the pandemic, very instrumental for us was the predictions and forecasting. That was crucial when we prepared for alert and lockdowns. No? And more or less, these predictions and forecasts were very accurate with this particular group. So to give us at this point, with the very low booster uptake, what could be the possible forecast of a possible surge and spike in the next few months? So we have here Professor Guido David, the Octa Research Fellow, and professor of the UP Institute of Mathematics, to discuss us on this aspect of forecasting and predictions in the next few months. Professor.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Salante and Dr. Linden, for the invitation. Good morning to all the other speakers and to our guests from the media and from medical practice. So I'd like to share my screen, and just to add to what has been discussed, Dr. Gloriani talked about the evidence for waning immunity, and of course, Presidential Advisor Sir Joey talked about the economic impact of not having these booster shots. So quickly, papakita ko lang. These are pandemic trends in the Philippines, China, and Thailand. And tama yung sinabi ni Presidential Advisor Joey na we are in a good situation kung titingnan natin yung pandemic curve ng Philippines. Rapid increase, tapos rapid decrease. Yung blue curve dito. Mas mabuti yun kesa mabagal na increase na matagal yung pandemic. Look at Thailand. Yung increase nila halos sabay sa atin, but they're still on a surge. Hindi pa bumababa yung cases nila. Sa atin bumaba within a little over 1 month. And right now, isa sa mga concerns natin yung China, tumataas na yung cases niya. Right now, nasa 15,000 cases na sila. And there are reports na medyo underreported pa yung cases nila. So the situation could be worse. Ngayon, papakita ko rin yung situation in some of the developed countries. UK in blue, France in green, and then Australia in gray. Ano yung pinapakita dito? Kung titingnan natin yung, let's say, yung France, yung green curve, nagsimula yung surge niya. And this is the Omicron surge. This is not Delta kasi lahat ito nangyari around December of 2021. So nag-surge siya around late December. Bumaba na siya by March. And titingnan natin, tumataas ulit siya. Pero wala naman bagong variant. Yes, may mga new sub-variants, may recombinants. Pero Omicron pa rin ito eh. So bakit tumataas yung cases ulit sa France? Although hindi siya kasing bilis ng pagtaas ng initial surge. Ganyan din yung blue sa UK. Nagkaroon ng surge nung sometime mid-December. Bumaba na siya. By March, tumataas ulit. Although ngayon, bumababa na siya ulit. Pero tumaas ulit siya. Although not as high as yung initial surge. Ganun din sa Australia. Late December, nag-surge, bumaba na siya, tapos tumataas siya ulit. So ano yung possible explanation dito sa pagtaas ng cases? Well, of course, isang possible explanation dyan yung hindi na pagsunod sa minimum public health standards. Pero ang isa ring possible explanation dyan, yung waning immunity. Ito, evidence-based ito eh. Kasi yung data mismo, pinapakita na tumataas yung cases ulit. Although yun nga, hindi siya kasing malala tulad ng initial outbreak, pero tumataas pa rin. And it will also cause disruption pa rin. And yung 3 months na yan, this is actually parang clue yan na baka nga waning immunity yan. Kasi ano pa bang ibang explanation? Mobility, medyo consistent naman yung mobility. Yun nga, minimum public health standards, pero medyo more or less consistent din naman sa kanila. Kung titingnan natin sa NCR, ito yung from 2021, may alpha-beta surge tayo, February to March, and then nagkaroon tayo ng Delta surge, and then yung most recent, yung Omicron surge. May nakikita din tayong pattern, parang nagkakaroon ng another wave after about 3 months. Of course, dala ito ng bagong variant. Yun nga, from alpha-beta, pumasok yung Delta, pumasok yung Omicron. So, major explanation, dala ng bagong variant. Pero ang isang possibility din dyan ay humihina din yung natural immunity natin na na-mention ni PA Joey Concepcion na meron tayong natural immunity, kaya mabilis bumaba yung cases. Pero pag nag-wane na rin itong natural immunity, kasi baka may mga kababayan tayo na sasabihin nila, okay, hindi na ako magpapabakuna dahil may natural immunity tayo. Nag-wane din yata yun. It's very possible. So, ito yung situation ngayon sa NCR. Maganda pa naman yung numbers natin. Very low. Pero I also have to say na may nakikita tayong uptick sa ibang region. Mababa pa naman. Actually, sa Northern Mindanao natin nakikita yung uptick. Pero titingnan pa natin, monitor pa natin. Ito yung tracker galing sa Philippine Genome Center ng Omicron subvariants na kumalat sa Pilipinas. And we can see mostly BA2, may BA1 din na kumalat based on genome sequencing. Pero based on our data sa pag-track natin sa reproduction number, mukhang kumalat ng BA2 in most of the country. Pero yun nga, meron na mga bagong subvariants. Yung BA2, marami na siyang sublineage and meron na mga recombinant. Most recently, yung minomonitor nilang ng World Health Organization, yung XE, which is a recombinant ng BA1 and BA2, possibly 10% more transmissible than yung BA2 na nakuha natin dito. So ano yung mga pwedeng mangyari? Well, this is just one scenario na pag nag-wane yung immunity natin, decreasing immunity or decreasing antibody levels, pwedeng magkaroon ng resurgence in cases. So ito yung gusto nating iwasan. So yung mga nakikita natin sa UK, sa France na nagkakaroon ng resurgence. Ito kasi sa atin, nabanggit natin na mga 3 months. Kung January tayo nagka-surge plus 3 months, so mga April, ngayon na. And may nakita tayong uptick in some regions sa Pilipinas, especially siguro yung mga medyo mababa yung vaccine coverage. That's why important patuloy natin yung vaccine coverage, yung vaccinations and pagpapa-boosters. Ito lang, cover ko rin lang yung ito syempre yung end goal natin, yung endemic. This is one definition. Disease outbreak is endemic when it is consistently present but limited to a particular region. This makes the disease spread and rates predictable. So, importante dito, predictable na hindi siya magkakaroon ng surge. Right now, meron pa ring level of unpredictability. Siguro pag hindi na magka-surge over a certain period of time, at kung mababa ng cases worldwide, maybe we can say na mas predictable na siya. Pero sa ngayon, even though mababa ng cases dito sa Pilipinas, hindi pa naman natin masasabing contained na siya sa isang region na lang kasi it's still we're still finding it yung cases in many parts of the country, pero yun nga yung predictability is the problem, kaya maganda yung ipagpatuloy natin yung vaccination. So these are the threats. May vaccine hesitancy pa rin in some parts of the country, may low vaccine coverage in some parts of the country, and worldwide binabantayan din natin to, low vaccine coverage in many impoverished countries. Bakit tayo ma-affect nito? Kasi kung mababa yung coverage nila for vaccinations, kung nagka-surge dun sa ibang bansa, pwede magkaroon ng panibagong variant. So, low booster uptake, that's a threat. Yung mention nga natin, mga bagong variants, subvariants, and recombinants, tulad ng XE, and non-compliance with, medyo relaxed na yung minimum public health standards natin, pero, maganda pa rin sinusunod natin yan. So, ayun, I will end here, and thank you again for the invitation, and happy to answer questions. Thank you, Dr. Jean.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. So at this point, we'll open the floor for the Q&A, and I have some questions here. So the first question, first of all, thank you for our media friends for attending this forum. So the first question is directed to Ma'am Nina. The first question is the herd immunity still applicable with these variants of concern? And the second question is, what is the update of the second booster recommendation?
Okay. Thank you. Good morning again. And yung pong herd immunity ay meron tayong pinapredict na level of immunity na will be sufficient to protect other people. Pero right now, because of this variance nga, ang ating tinitignan ay yung immunity wall na lahat. Yung dati, we're talking about 80%. Now, we want it more than 90-95%. Yung immunity wall na minention natin. Now, regarding the second booster, nasa FDA po yan, pero hopefully, actually, binigay ulit sa ibang mga experts yung sinubmit na request ng DOH, and hopefully within the next few days sana or weeks lalabas po yung kanilang decision on the second booster. Ongoing po.
Thank you, Ma'am Nina. There are two media friends here who asked this particular question. One is Red Mendoza of Manila Standard. Secretary Duque has suggested to Congress the push for mandatory vaccination. Despite it being controversial, what is your thoughts about this? Is it time for the Philippines to make COVID vaccination mandatory? So I will ask this question to PA Joey, and this will be followed by our President, Maricar Limpin.
Thank you, Doc. I actually answered that kanina in a media forum, but I think it's a good that Secretary Duque is trying to push it forward and get Congress or the President to try to make vaccines mandatory, but I don't think it will make it through. And by and large, I think we can't really force people to take the vaccine if they don't want to. But what we can do is to do what we have been doing in the past. No? Pwede natin i-restrict yung movement ng those who did not take the booster shot. So there are many ways of doing it. Entering restaurants, cinemas, and all of those establishments, or even taking a flight without a booster shot can be one of the conditions, no, to restrict the movement, and that can work. No, in fact, in America, you can't enter America without your vaccine cards. No? So I think this is one area that the president will have to make the decision. And hopefully the situation where you have 27 million expiring, and remember, we still have much more than 27 million on hand. No? So if that is going to expire, you will have others that are coming close to expiry. So this number is huge. So, and the future of buying vaccines may be in trouble because the next administration will definitely be more careful and maybe hold back to see whether there is a demand for it. No? So these are the consequences of if we fail to really booster people in this period. So I look at this as a critical point. No? We cannot fail in executing this third booster shot. So whatever efforts that the private sector is going to do, either giving benefits or incentives, we will do it just to encourage. And the hard hand approach can be adopted in these ways, of restricting mobility, transport mobility, whether flying to a province or taking a public transportation. But of course, that will also come with a lot of criticism, no, from the public, which at this point in elections, people try to avoid all of that. No? So, but then again, the consequence of failure is going to be a problem in the second semester.
Thank you, Sir Joey. Maricar?
Yes, thank you. I think I will have to agree with Mr. Joey Concepcion. Probably we can restrict, and if the private sector can afford it, then there can be some incentives, no, para maengganyo natin ang mas maraming tao. But what is really important ay malabanan natin yung lahat ng mga maling impormasyon na kumakalat na siyang pinapaniwalaan ng marami sa mga Pilipino, no. So importante kasi na maalis natin ang mga agam-agam sa kanilang mga pag-iisip para sa ganoon sila ay magpunta at magpapakuna. At this point in time, may mga reports din ng mga adverse events, no? Pero I think importante na malaman ng tao kung ano ang ginagawa ng gobyerno laban dito sa mga adverse events. Hindi naman nagiging kampante o hindi naman nananatiling bulag o bingi ang ating gobyerno kasi ito naman ay ina-address. Pero kailangan natin kasi iparating sa mga tao kung ano talaga ang ginagawa para sa ganon, kung magkaroon sila, ma-experience nila yung mga ganitong epekto, then alam nila na merong titingin sa kanila. So I think importante yon na makita ng ating mga mamamayan kung ano ang magiging mangyayari, no, kung sakaling magkaroon sila ng mga side effects. But overall, although pinag-uusapan at sinasabi ko tungkol dito sa mga adverse effects nito, no, kailangan ipaalam din natin sa mga tao na sa dami, sa milyon-milyon ng mga Pilipino na nagpabakuna, hindi naman talaga tayo nakakita ng masyadong masasamang epekto, no? So, ang kumakalat kasi yung mga masasama na wala naman pang basehan, no? So, I think sa ating mga kababayan, hindi ho kami magsasalita ng ganito sa harapan ho ninyo kung hindi ho kami nakakatiyak doon sa lahat ng mga binibitawan naming salita. Kaya kami naninindigan na sa Philippine College of Physicians, 10 ng lahat ng mga kasamahan naming mga doktor na hindi ho kami magsasabing kayo po ay lumabas at magpabakuna kung hindi ito makakabuti sa inyo. So talaga pong ang bakuna ang isa sa mga effective na strategy natin para maproteksyonan natin ang ating mga sarili. So let's go out and have ourselves vaccinated.
Thank you, Maricar. Okay. This next question is directed to Professor Guido David. Since we already have low number of cases, and as we continue to monitor some of the important metrics in terms of downgrading or escalating the alert level, what do you think are the other important metrics that we need to monitor that will be an important determinant to downgrade or to upgrade the alert level?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jean, for the question. I'm not sure kung sino yung nagtanong, but actually, yung mga metrics na mahalaga ay minomonitor na rin naman natin. So, not just the number of cases, pero yung healthcare utilization, very important yan. So, minomonitor naman natin at masaya tayo na updated na ulit yung data sa data drop tungkol sa healthcare utilization. Ang isa pa ay syempre yung vaccine coverage at yung booster coverage. So minomonitor din natin yan. Kasi nga may threat ng waning immunity. So kung may area na medyo mababa yung vaccine coverage or yung yung booster coverage, medyo magiging concern tayo. At dynamic ito, hindi ito static, hindi porke na-vaccinate na natin ay tapos na yung problema. Na-mention nga yung about yung herd immunity. This is also dynamic din eh. I know na sa ibang bansa, actually, I think sinabi sa akin na sa Singapore, meron talaga silang personal tracker kasi may app sila. So pag after a period of time, pinyari 3 months, para may alert na makukuha yung resident na Singapore na baka kailangan na niyang magpa-boosters. Ganon. Parang may app na nag-trigger yan. Sinabi sa akin ng isang anchor. At ang kahalagahan nito, pwedeng individually magpa-check sila. So yung ginawa nun ng person na yun, nung na-alert siya, nagpa-check siya ng antibody levels. Tapos nakita naman, medyo mataas may antibody levels niya. Pero, syempre, iba-iba yung situation ng mga bawat isa sa atin individually. So, ideally sana ma-monitor din natin yan. Pero kung wala tayong monitoring system, maganda, magpa-schedule na tayo ng booster shots periodically. So isa sa yan sa mga mahalagang metrics na binabantayan dapat natin. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Professor. Another question for Ma'am Nina. Are the current vaccines available effective against the XE variant?
Okay. Sa ngayon, wala pa tayong data dyan, no? Kasi bago lang lumabas yan, it will take some time bago maitetest yung mga neutralizing antibodies for the specific recombinant na variant na yan. So, mukha naman ang sinasabi nila ay hindi masyadong makaka-apekto, no? Na remember, itong mga mutations na to, sa ngayon, yung nakikita natin, konti-konti lang, 3 amino acid mutations ito, it may not be sufficient to actually change yung characteristics nung Omicron. So, pero titignan natin with more data later, pero hindi natin masabi sa ngayon. Pag-aaralan.
Thank you, Ma'am Nina. This is a question from Red again, Mendoza, to PA Joey. People will have opposition regarding the requirement of booster cards. What can you tell to those who oppose your plans regarding booster cards, as it may just increase vaccine hesitancy?
Well, yeah, I know. I'm used to people always contradicting my view, but in the end, we wouldn't reach here without the push, from especially from government and the private sector. Of course, a lot of people have their own opinion, but then again, I think all of us have seen the roadmap towards what got us here, and it was clearly the vaccination program, efforts of the government, private sector, and of course our medical doctors who really help push this. So I think we just have to be consistent with the theme, and it's normal, no? Even I mean, you tend to be complacent when things are back to normal. So we have to tell them that the future is at stake, and hopefully you also have to somehow try to restrict mobility. There is always either you give them a incentive, or you give them a disincentive if they don't do it. No, so those are both steps. We have done it in the past. People have criticized the move, but it somehow was effective. Now, do we do it again? I think it should be done. If we wait longer, then the consequences is huge. No, and not only the waning immunity, but the waste of money in procuring these vaccines, and not to withstand that there are more vaccines in the pipeline that we have purchased but are not expiring yet on June and July. No? But that will soon surely affect us. No? So we have to look at all these consequences and the economy that's at stake. So if one sits and sees the big picture out there, and that is really to get this economy moving, because many people are starting to improve their lives. We don't want to make them go back to square one again. No? So all of these efforts that all of us have placed will really just go to waste, and the Philippines will be in a serious financial situation, because, Secretary Dominguez has said we have borrowed trillions of pesos, no? And he has looked into ways and means of increasing taxes to be able to pay for this. No? So in the end, our debt to GDP, which will really surpass 60%, if what do you call this, our borrowing, there is no growth and there is a decline in growth in the country, then of course your debt to GDP will deteriorate, and the entire banking community will now look at the Philippines and say, should we lend the Philippines, considering that their financial conditions are waning? Not only we have a waning immunity, we will have a waning economy, which is worse in a time that you have this crisis in Ukraine and Russia. So it's something that we can't afford. We're not a wealthy nation, that we can withstand all of this. And many of our entrepreneurs are not large entrepreneurs; they're small, so they can get whipsawed with another alert level 3, 4, or 5. So unlike bigger companies, they can somehow withstand it a little bit better. But 99% of our business community here are small entrepreneurs. So this is what we're trying to protect. This is what I'm trying to protect, because in the end, we will just have to blame ourselves. And I want the next administration will also be cautious. And once they are extremely cautious, then there could be mistakes. They might say, let's not first buy the vaccines and let's see how many people will register and sign their name to take the booster. Then that's when they order. By that time, it might be too late. No? So it's and Professor Guido is correct. Yeah, while we are at the sweet spot, there could be we're maybe fortunate that we have reached this level of a strong wall of immunity, but that will weaken, and all of a sudden we get hit with this new variant, and that's the end again of the Philippines, and we will all go back to where we started, and it will get frustrating. We'll all get tired of going back to this whole thing. So the frustration will mount. So right now we're not there, but I'm saying that we will get there if the people don't take the vaccines that the private sector and the government has bought.
Thank you, Sir Joey. Okay, so I think there is Maricar.
Yes, yeah. Yung question mo on the vaccine card, no, for the booster, hindi ko naman maintindihan kung bakit naman magkakaroon ng opposition tungkol dito. I think maganda na klaro na ang mga tao ay meron ng primary vaccination nila, and then meron din silang booster shots. Kasi yung separate na vaccine card for the booster, it emphasizes yung importance ng pagkuha ng mga booster shots nila. And then also, napansin ko rin, this is from experience. No? Pag pumunta ka sa mga kainan, hahanapan ka talaga ng vaccine card mo. And it happens na ang anak ko, yung kasama ko at that time, meron naman siyang booster shots na, no? But nakalimutan niya yung isang bakuna niya ng booster shots. But sabi niya, baka hindi ako papasukin, Mami. Tignan mo na, napakita mo. Pinakita niya yon, and he was allowed inside. So naisip ko nga na, ganito pala to, kasi nga hindi natin hinihingi, hindi natin nilalagay hindi natin binibigyan ng importansya yung booster shots na kailangang kuhain ng bawat Pilipino. So I guess dapat mawala ang opposition on those separate vaccine card for the booster, kasi importanteng talagang makuha nila ang mga booster shots na yan.
Okay. Thank you.
Doc, can I add something to that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Elintin. Eventually kasi, yung primary doses, wala na yan. Moving forward, it's all going to be booster. So it would be good that you really track the boosters. Sa America, but they're not using the word basically fully vaccinated if you take your primary and your booster. What happened here is that once you take your booster, they say you're updated. So, but it would be good that if we have a separate booster card, if that will happen once a year, then at least it can be monitored in a booster card. Wala nang vaccine card kasi technically the vaccine is the booster naman. So, tama yan. I agree that then we have the booster card. And yes, they do look for it. And somehow, whether I'd say right now, we did a survey in Go Negosyo of how many people are really checking. It's about 70%, which is okay na rin because there is a semblance of. In fact, I encountered that for getting my vaccine card, so I had to ask my secretary to send it via Viber to be able to enter a restaurant. And iba dyan, talagang stricto. So, which is good. So if that shifts to a booster card, then it will now set as a reminder that people have to take their boosters regularly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Ma'am Nina.
May I add? Alam nyo, dapat ang vaccine cards, may validity for movement. So, yung naka 1 year na ago, hindi na pwede yon. Kaya they will need to update. Siguro that is how we should approach it. Kung may expiration yung bakuna, may expiration ng ating vaccine cards. So, hindi po pwedeng sobra na siyang luma. Ako, I took my vaccines March. Hindi po pwedeng yung March ang ibibigay ko para ako nyari mag-abroad o pumunta sa mga establishments. kumbaga nagre-renew po tayo sa PRC, no? Mga license natin. Kailangan po may ganon, yung validity. And that is required internationally for international travel. In fact, I asked it during one of the webinars I attended, are we actually enforcing that or requiring that sa Philippines? Yung pumapasok naman? Do we look at the validity of their immunization cards? I don't think so. So may validity po. I don't want to use naman expiry. Kaya I was thinking, wala pong forever sa bakuna. Hindi siya forever and ever. Yan ang hawak mo nung Marso pa, nung July pa. Hindi po. Yun siguro, I don't know.
Yeah, I have to agree with Dr. Nina, no? Kasi even sa ibang nating vaccination, yung immunization natin like tetanus, meron lang siya for 10 years dapat ina-update natin yung mga vaccination natin. And the tendency ng mga Pilipino kinakalimutan ito, no? Kasi nga hindi nga natin binibigyan ng ng importansya. And I think this is a good start para pati na rin yung vaccination doon sa ibang mga sakit, maisama na rin, no, yung sa programang ito, yung mga tama ka, Dr. Nina, we need to have an updated immunization card.
Okay, thank you. I think in the interest of time, I just want to get the final or last message to our audience, to the media, to the people. Can we start with Ma'am Nina?
Yes, paulit-ulit naman yung call natin na yung malinaw ang data sa third dose, first booster pa lang, na makakatulong ng malaki sa atin yon. So, yung mga lampas na dyan, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months ago na, i-update na natin yung ating mga bakuna cards na para natin sa economy. Masaya tayo ngayon, ang dami nating nagagawa dahil sa bakuna. We have to continue that dahil nga may expiration ang ating vaccination card. So, yun lang po. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor David?
Yeah, thank you rin again for the invitation. And yun nga, nag-present naman tayo ng mga data and evidence. And let's listen to the experts. Let's listen to the medical experts. Let's listen to the economic experts. Bihira yung unified tayo sa ating vision, pero dito we're all in agreement sa ano yung kailangan nating gawin. I mean, of course, yung exact methodology will be different, pero yung end goal natin, gusto nating magpabakuna yung mga kababayan natin, gusto nating magpa-boosters sila. Ayan, maraming salamat.
Thank you. Sir Joey?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our medical doctors here, Dr. Nina, Dr. Limpin, and of course, Dr. Solante, for being part of this whole journey and really getting us to this situation that we're in. And of course, our friend Professor David, who has in Octa, who has been helping us provide that visibility. So I think we know what works, no, and we've at least achieved that to where we are today, and hopefully we should still continue to really be vigilant, because complacency is a tendency, especially in many Filipinos. Now, when you're up there and you're doing well, you tend to lay back and think that everything is normal, and all of a sudden something hits you hard, and then we go back to where we are. So I think working together with you, and of course our media, who has been very helpful in getting our messages out to the public, and of course our partners, Secretary Duque, and of course they're ending their term, Secretary Galvez. I'd say, despite of all the challenges and all the criticisms that really they face, they worked pretty well with us in the private sector, and have done good things, and things that people don't realize that they've been effective as well. And without, of course, their support, and of course your support, I don't think this current state where the Philippines is would have been achieved.
Thank you. Maricar?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to our guests, Dr. Nina, si Professor Guido, and of course to the Presidential Advisor, Mr. Joey Concepcion. Ito po talaga ang programa na pinupush po ng Philippine College of Physicians ang talagang masiguro ho natin na ang lahat ng Pilipino ay mabigyan ng protection. So far, ang ebidensya po na pinapakita, maaaring hindi po talaga tunay na maaaring magkaroon pa rin kayo ng infection ng COVID-19 with the kahit na kayo ay nabakunahan. But ang mga booster shots ho ngayon ang pinapakita, it can prevent severe disease. I think ito yung pinaka-importante sa lahat. Kasi ang pinakaayaw ho natin ay ang na makitang mangyari ay ang mamatay ang mga Pilipino. At namamatay po ang Pilipino kapag ang sakit na makuha mo ay severe. No? So far sa third dose, sa third shot, sa unang booster shots na yan, pinapakita na it gives us protection against severe COVID-19. Sa mga unang pag-aaral din po, ukol din sa fourth, yung pangalawang booster shots na nakita ho natin sa Israel. Dito pinakita, although maliit pa po yung observation period nila, pero pinapakita po na maganda rin ang nakikitang protection against severe COVID-19. So, tayo pong lahat ay talagang makikinabang kung tayo po ay makakatanggap ng booster shot. So, sabi nga dito sa title natin, isa, dalawa, tatlo, halika na tayo, magpabakuna na ho tayo.
Thank you, Maricar. So at this point, I would like to call the chair of the PCP Health Forum, Dr. Samonte, to give us the closing remarks.
Magandang umaga po muli sa inyong lahat. Unang-una, maraming salamat po sa mga experts natin ngayong umaga na to. At ang ating mga umattend na media partners at also ang ating ibang mga doktor na kasamahan. Napakaganda ng venue na to na nagpa-partner nga tayong lahat para labanan ang isa nating kalaban, which is COVID-19. Tandaan natin yung battle against COVID-19, hindi pa po tapos. No, hindi tayo dapat maging kampante, as always sinasabi po namin. At sabi nga ni Dr. Gloriani kanina, walang forever sa vaccine. Pero kami dito sa PCP, forever kami na mananatili, nasusuportahan ang kalusugan nating mga Pilipino with our partners sa business and also sa Department of Health. Hanggang sa muli, ito po ang inyong committee ng media communication sa PCP, naway tuloy-tuloy ang ating pag-aaral at ang pagpapalaganap ng tamang impormasyon sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone, to our guests, to our media partners. Thank you.
Photo op daw tayo.
The Philippine College of Physicians, through the Committee on Media Communication and Health Forum, wishes to thank its media partners, social media followers, and participants. See you again next time, here on the PCP Health Forum.